Welcome to the Music Maker's Cookbook, the podcast that helps independent artists cook up recipes for success in the music industry. I'm really hoping this fan noise doesn't get captured too much in the recording.
Oh, I think it'll be fine. It's hot anyways. So,
it's very hot.
So you guys gotta cut us some slack. We gotta have a little bit of air conditioning going on. It's been brutal.
Oh my god. Yesterday we did a live show in Wayne and man, it was like 95 degrees.
Yeah.
I went through 8 bottles of water in like 2 hours.
I believe it. I believe it. It probably still wasn't enough.
Probably not.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to go to the bathroom the entire time.
Yeah.
It was just all sweat
You're like
out.
breaking even at that point.
Crazy.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Which there are some spaces in the world where that's not even that hot, which is insane.
I know.
But for here, it's, being in the Midwest.
Yep.
Which always confuses me.
Yeah, I know. Me too.
We're
me too.
The northernmost of the states, like we are bordering with Canada, and if you look at the thing as a whole, we're more east than west.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Yeah. That's that. I've always been confused by that too. And there's a lot of debates on TikTok right now for some reason that people are exploring that. I just saw like 2 videos the other day. So funny enough, you even brought that up. So,
Yep.
Yeah. We're in a weird geographical place.
We are. Man, that was a fun way to randomly start off a podcast episode. I'm going to now segment over to the question that we usually ask at the start of the podcast episodes. And that would be, I know a lot of times when there's like long days in the studio, like really, I don't like food in my studio all too often. But waters and covered drinks are perfectly fine. But occasionally it's like it's a long day. You got to have some sort of food, some sort of snack going on, or
Absolutely.
like go out and place an order of food for the band while they're recording all day or whatnot. Is there like a go-to that you do for all that?
I would say like my most productive like meal if I want to be productive in the studio, which is I always want to be, but I don't ever, sometimes I don't get to this meal is just chicken and rice, man. Like it's a solid go-to. You get your protein, you get your decent carbs in there,
You season the rice at all?
It depends on what kind of rice is available. We'll use those packets, those 90-second packets ones, So like if it's rice. Jasmine or something, that's what I'll have, or whatever is on tap for the day, for rice. And that's truly like the best meal that I feel like I have at the studio.
I should probably get me some of those. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I have a rice maker and I'll just make plain rice.
Oh yeah, I just did that yesterday. It's awesome.
Soy and chicken.
Yep, we just had steak bowls yesterday with rice and steak. It's like we call them Qdoba bowls because it's basically what they are. And we just make our own and we save a shitload of money in the process doing so too. And it fills us up and we have leftovers. So, and like the food's actually decent too. So it's not like you're going to like feel like absolute garbage after depending on how much you eat, but so any combination of the chicken and rice, bowls or whatever, that's like my go-to productivity meal in the studio. Yeah, 100%. What about you?
So like when I have people over in the studio and we're like recording, I mean the go-to is just, hey, somebody run and get a pizza.
Yeah.
There's nothing like it's easy to share. Everyone can have it. I've got a little bit of a break room in the front, so we'll all go there and take a quick break, eat that, and then go back into the studio. But it's one of those foods where you have to be careful because if you eat too much, then you get really sluggish with all the grease and the fat and all that. Dairy.
Yeah.
Takes a lot out of you sometimes.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And it can make you do things,
Yes, it can.
Yeah,
Yep, that microphones will pick up.
Yes, it will. and then you'll have everybody wondering in the session, where did this person go for so long?
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
But it is a pretty cheap way to to feed a lot of people in the studio.
Very efficient.
It is. So that's probably my go-to. But when you're recording in the studio, I'll pass the question along to you guys. Do you bring like jerky or nuts or anything in the studio?
Nuts are great.
Or
love nuts. Yep. Yep. Like I fuck up all the time and we'll have like the worst foods like potato chips or pretzels or something and just like absolutely kill myself. And then when I get back to it, I'm like, I feel like shit and I gotta like push through this now. So
now
where do I go next?
Is going to be a struggle.
Yep. And so where do I go next? Let's go make a cup of coffee now. So it's like, oh man, it's like a never-ending bad feedback loop. And
caffeine's a wonder drug.
It is. I wish I had more of it.
We don't have a coffee with us today.
We don't today. I had coffee before I came today.
Oh, did you?
I did.
No.
Did you?
No. Don't have one after this recording session.
Raw dog.
So I feel a little bit low energy today. Okay, if I'm a little bit low energy today, you'll know why. I just realized the thing that Brandon just said. Anyways, let us know what your favorite go-to thing is for the studio. And also, like when you're in the studio, it's really important that you stay focused and are in a space that makes you feel like you want to be creative. I know I purposefully built my studio to be a clean, creative space that adds itself to people wanting to record there. I know Brandon's done the same,
Absolutely.
especially with his new beautiful board that he got,
Oh,
which we
thank
will
you.
talk about later.
Yes, we will.
As we dive into this episode, that's all about optimizing your creative spaces so that you can be productive in creative aspects of it, as well as logical aspects and business aspects of it. But yeah, first of all, let's talk about like why is this important to build your space around what you need to do? Why can't you just like make awesome music in your bedroom?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's super important, and like a way that I would like to demonstrate it is: would you rather walk into a just very nice looking studio with nice lights, nice ambience, the ability to change stuff, and kind of adapt to what you need as a musician, as a client, or whatever the case may be? Right. I'm just using the studio as an example, right? In this case, just because I'm the most familiar
It's what
with
we
it.
know.
Exactly.
That's what we're going to use for examples.
And studios look awesome on pictures. You know, it's like we always aim to be looking good.
Side question: do you have any like Pinterest pages that you
I
follow?
don't. I don't. No. Usually it's like in my Facebook feed. Like if Avid shares something that they have in somebody's studio, like an S6 or something, it looks just fucking amazing. By the way, those are like $100,000. So I looked it up yesterday just out of shits. And whatever I see on Facebook in my feed, I'm like, damn, this looks really good. I used to follow stuff on Instagram, like sexy studios or some shit, you know?
That's basically what the Pinterest boards I get.
Yeah,
Like, and I'll get
totally.
emails notifying me like, hey, check out this board.
Yep.
And it's just different like analog, stuff like that and whatnot. Or like Cable Porn's a Facebook group where it's like super neatly tied and still cables and studio
dude.
runs. And
Yeah, man.
that stuff's just so cool to look at.
Yeah, dude. And I mean, recently, like you and I both have been in a lot of studios, like more recently too. You know?
other people's studios for sure.
And like just going there and looking at what they do is just so inspirational. And it's like you kind of like, well, can I incorporate something similar to that? You know?
Yeah. Usually with us for like, how can we incorporate that for less money?
Exactly. usually, like how can I Amazon budget this?
There's
you know?
some nice ass studios around here.
Oh yeah, dude, there really are. There's one right across the street that's really nice too, and his space looks great, you know.
Yeah.
And like, would you rather go into a really nice looking studio?
Oh, that's how this conversation started.
Yeah. Would you rather go into a really nice looking studio? Or would you rather go into an office to go work on your music, right? Where the office is very brightly lit with LED tube lights, which just look like shit, and like they give you a headache after a while. Super sterile. Like we're here to work. You're here to work. You're here to work. No socialization. No fun. Like which one sounds better? You know, you're gonna take the nice looking studio each and every time over the studio that has the terrible incandescent lights,
the relaxing, good vibes that keep you. You want to be there, you want to make it. Yeah.
Yep.
But that's like for studio space, but also like for in your own space.
Yeah.
If you're going to want to be creating music, you're going to want to be in a location where you have all of your guitars easily to grab so you can pick one up or change different tones or have your amps out and ready or your drum kit available. And also preferably in a space that you're not hindered on what time of day you can play it or whatnot, your volume or whatnot.
Yep.
And you want that space to like really be what that space is for, so that when you go in there, you're kind of led down the path towards the act of being creative and working on your craft, and working on music. So that's why it's really important.
We're very visual as humans, very visual, and like that makes sense, right?
Yeah, but every space is different.
But every space is different, right? And this is not only like a forefront brain question, right? Where we actually take in the information, we say we like this or we don't, but this is also like a back end thing, right? Where this plays into our circadian rhythm, like we were kind of talking about before. This is like deep ingrained psychology kind of stuff on the back end of things too. So that's what also makes this very important, is that we are nourishing the back end of things and keeping everything in check as humans, but also getting that like kind of like a dopamine response a little bit, of being able to be very creative in a very cool looking space, a very nice looking space, a space that boosts productivity and efficiency.
Training your brain to not only this is what I do here, but I want to do this here is incredibly important. And it is mentioned like the whole dopamine thing. Like if you get a rush from being in this location and
where it makes you want to be there,
it makes you want to work on your music. It makes you want to practice and do repetitive tasks or tackle business things or email things or personal things. That's what you want.
Yep.
I know I personally struggle with this. I've struggled with this throughout my whole life. I was a horrible student.
Throughout
up like all through up until high school. College I got a little better.
Yeah.
But
You got a lot better. That's when I met you.
no, I was
Great
not.
student.
I was not.
10 out of 10 student.
Easy classes.
They were kind of easy. I'm not going to lie.
But like for me, I've always had an incredibly hard time of doing work at home. Like if my studio was in my house still, I would not be doing nearly as much music.
Totally.
Because home isn't where you work. It's,
Right.
It's where you do things with the family, or cook, or clean, or relax, or sleep. The bedroom's where you sleep. People who have offices in their bedrooms, I will never understand it.
Yeah, that's
it
tough.
does not work for me.
No way.
So like that's personal preference for me.
Yeah.
I need to have a separate space because like it's just incredibly necessary.
Me too. Me
for
too.
my brain to be in a space that's purposely built for the task I need to do. I can't have everything in one location and whatnot.
Totally agree.
So yeah, that's why. That's just how it is for me. That's
Yeah.
the preferences that I need and whatnot.
Yeah, I kind of follow that same traditional kind of like thinking, I guess. Not traditional, but like it is sort of traditional where you have that work home separation. And I can think that kind of leads us to what we want to talk about first too, and kind of specify up front is that this conversation is going to be so different, like to each person that is listening right now. Like you will have your own preferences. So what we say usually works for us or in our experience, right? But it might not work for you. So, you know, you kind of have to tailor this to what your experience is, to what you're looking for.
These are general tips that
Exactly.
will work in pretty much everybody's situation, but make your space work for you. That's the most important thing. You don't have to follow everything that we say to a T, especially if you have to make a lot of changes in order to implement these things, especially if you're in the middle of like a large task or something that you are putting together. Like if you were halfway through working on an album, wait to make a change.
Yes.
Don't apply everything that we're talking about all at once, because it's just going to throw it off and it's going to make some things incoherent and inconsistent between the current act you're in. So sometimes it's important to actually put it on pause before you implement things to make it better. But you know, constantly reevaluating. It's always going to change because our preferences are going to change. And all that.
And to that point, you know, this takes a lot of experimentation sometimes too, you know, which also means sometimes throwing a lot around some money, you know, so make sure that, you know, everything is within a budget. You have a set budget and you don't try to go over that too. And then same thing with like a set amount of time where you're like, okay, at this point, am I just changing things just to change things, or am I actually being productive and investing into the space itself? Because there is a fine line there, and you will cross that line of entry if you let it get to that point. I've done it myself.
Yeah,
Speaking from experience.
Exactly.
From experience.
So with that, now we've kind of preambled on a little bit personal experiences, why it's important to do it, but maybe not right away. Let's kind of do on some practical tips on things you can apply to take your current space and make it so that you is more optimized. You is more optimized. That was a weird way of phrasing it.
I like it. I like it. Keep it. Put it on a shirt.
Slap it on a shirt. Put it on a mug. Let's do it.
Yeah.
But the first thing we kind of alluded to earlier, a practical tip, is just keep things within arm's reach that are necessary for you to do the task.
Yeah.
If you are creating a practice space in your guitars, you want your guitars easily accessible, mounted on the wall like the acoustic is behind me, or on a fucking multi-guitar stand or whatnot. So that way you can just pick up and grab the thing that you were inspired by in the moment. Also your picks, your capos, extra strings in like a shelf or on a drawer, something that's easily accessible if you need to access them. Because if something happens, you drop a pick or whatnot, you don't want to get thrown out of the vibe of the flow state. So having things within arm's reach that you are going to be using, and keeping things that aren't useful for what you're about doing out of arm's reach, like your phone or your laptop or tablet, or I mean pretty much anything that connects you to social media or digital or whatnot that are built to distract you. Keep those away from arm's reach, so that way when there is downtime or you're pondering ideas or whatnot and your brain wants to go grab something, 'cause that's how my brain works at least. It always wants to be doing something. I can't just turn around and grab my phone and then, now 20 minutes has gone by. And
and throw the phone back down. And then all of a sudden you get a notification, you got to pick the phone back up. Yeah, no, this one is honestly surprisingly slightly tricky to do, because at the time when you're working on a project or something, or you're writing your song, you're not thinking about how to maximize your creative space, right? That's not on the forefront of your mind. And it shouldn't be at that time, because you were being creative at that time.
A little bit of a throwback. This is a solid quadrant 2 thing.
Yes, it is. Oh, very nice. I like that.
Check out our 4 quadrant episode.
Yes, absolutely. And then now we go we're like, we want to work on a creative space, like outside of creative time, right? So we go downstairs or we go to a separate building or something, and we get in there and we stand there and we go, well, fuck, what do we do? Right? Because you're not thinking about it. You're like, you just stand there and you're like, I don't know what's going to be helpful at this time. I will only know when I'm in the session. And so this one takes a lot of iteration to get right and become a little bit conscious of it while you're working on the session. Because then you can look back and be like, oh, I need to go grab a 1/4-inch cable and to plug in my guitar. And like, that's on the opposite side of the room, but I just want to record this riff real quick. That happened to me a lot. So I actually mounted just like a tiny little plastic bracket on the side of my old desk. And I was just like, grab, plug in, done. And nobody saw it. That was great, right? So it looked tidy. So and it wasn't in the forefront. It wasn't something that I was like always fidgeting with.
Yeah.
But it was like, oh, I can be productive, plug in, go, right? Just got to grab a guitar from the wall. That's it. And you don't have to use this exact example, but it goes to show like you have to be efficient with where you choose to place things. And like that efficiency comes with a lot of repetition and trying to become conscious of that while you're working, but also not focus on it while you're working. Delicate balance, hard to do. Because like I said, when you get down there with a clean slate, it's tough. It's tough to think about, you know?
So maybe next time you are doing one of these tasks that you want to reevaluate your space, bring a pen and paper, bring a notepad with you. And anytime something comes up where you're like, wow, man, it'd be great if I had this around me, or oh, I'm missing this right now, or oh, this is necessary, or hey, this is just, I noticed this is distracting me. Jot those notes down for the next, handful of times you're going down there and doing it. And then now you have a written list of what works, what doesn't work, what you need, what you don't need, and you can kind of then tailor your space around that. But that way, it's not just a thought in the moment of, oh, I need a cable. You go get a cable, you come back, and now you have the cable, so your brain moves on, and when you're done, it goes back across the room, like you were saying. You can look back and be like, oh, yeah, I forgot. It'd be really nice to have a cable here.
Exactly.
I need to get a hook for my desk so I can put the cable here.
Exactly.
And then from there on out, it's just way smoother. And not only is it within arm's reach, it's clean and tidy, like you were saying, too. So it's not distracting. It's not in the way. That's the second tip that we have, is just kind of keep things, not necessarily spick and span.
Right.
Not
We're not
everyone
looking for
functions
like
like
polished, shiny stuff. I mean, unless that's your thing. That's cool.
If you want that minimalist vibe, go for the minimalist vibe. But that's not a lot of musicians that I've met.
Same.
Yeah. But that being said, even if it may look like a mess or things are all over the place, clean and tidy doesn't necessarily mean clean and tidy. It really means like organized and void of distractions. If it's a messy desk with a bunch of different guitar stuff on it, like pedals and cables,
soldering irons,
it's a mess, but it only relates to what you are using the space
for. It's a very
for.
controlled chaos.
It is. And if that's how you function, you like looking at just this wide display of things and pulling inspiration from there, that suits you, that aids it. But if you want like a completely clean desk and everything in drawers where you can purposely pick out what you want, that works too. But making sure that it is void of distractions, fluid to work within, so you can go from this, go to that, and however your brain latches on to making that happen, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. This one is interesting because I've focused on this one a lot recently myself, and this is actually copying off of other studios that you and I have gone to recently. And people use, these studio owners, they use toolboxes, which is really cool. And it's not something I ever thought would ever intermingle. I don't know why I never made that connection and why that would be helpful. But when I saw that, I was like, dude, this is awesome. Light bulb moment. Because not only are they heavy and like they store a lot of stuff, but they also lock. So it's like a safety thing at the same time, which is great. So like putting mics in there, putting little cool gadgets in there, that you would use for guitar or something, whatever. Helps
reamp boxes, DI boxes.
Exactly. Keeps things tidy and organized and in the corner. But not only does this make things look good, right? Because the toolbox itself looks good, especially if you buy a nice black Husky toolbox with a nice like maple top on the top of it.
That's not even the one you have.
I know, but it looks so damn good. That's the one I'd want. So
are you we could retrofit yours, put a maple top on it.
We'll talk later.
I'll help you with it.
That'd be kind of sick.
Yeah, we'll stain, sand, and finish it.
And then we'll paint the toolbox black.
Why not?
Okay. Sean and I are going to be talking after this episode.
Yeah.
But not only does it look really good and tidy, right? But this actually helps reduce mental fatigue because now you know exactly where you're putting stuff in the drawers, or at least you should. And you can label the drawers, of course, on the outside saying, this is microphone, these are blah, 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 right? This helps reduce a lot of mental fatigue by knowing where things are at when you're in the moment of being creative, right? This eliminates friction and eliminates the barrier of saying, where did I put this again? Because that within itself can take you out of the session extremely fast. And I say session, songwriting session, whatever the case may be, right? This triggers a muscle memory response, which kind of helps with our click run response that we talked about in episode 30.
It was later than that.
Was it later than that?
I believe
43? So. I'm just saying numbers now at this point.
26, 34, 36. She's a brick house. But no, that's a good point. And like having things labeled, not only does it help you know where things go back consistently, but let's say you are doing a jam session, you invite other musicians over, or this isn't a rehearsal space, or maybe you have a small project studio or whatnot, and you're having your band over to record some things. Having them labeled and set aside in a specific place they always go back to allows you to easily communicate to others to grab things for you and keep the session moving, be whatever it is, what it is. Like if you're having a jam session and the guy you invited over broke a string or whatnot, you can be like, yeah, it's third shelf on the top, it's labeled strings. Just go in there and grab one to replace what broke. Boom. Immediately. You don't have to stop what you're doing, get yourself out of the vibe, get up, walk over, show him exactly where it is and whatnot. Just clear direction. It's labeled. He knows exactly where to go. And you can keep working on what you're working on while he's replacing a string. When he comes back, like, hey, man, I got this new idea based off what we were doing. Like, you're still in the vibe, and it helps bring them back in.
Exactly.
Sooner than not.
Yep.
So,
yeah, this one is pretty massive in my opinion.
I agree.
This can help out so much, and I know this has helped me out a ton. And now that I've changed everything, this is just coming from my personal experience within the past couple of weeks, because Sean helped me bring down the toolbox actually that day. Right before we recorded that day, and ever since getting that, it's been awesome, right? But now I'm relearning where everything is at this point, and now that I have the new desk too on top of that. Lots of changes were made, and honestly, it's completely different. And honestly, at this point, I know we said sometimes to wait, but like I'm glad I did it all at once, just so I can relearn it all at once and then call it a day. Instead of like relearning it and then all of a sudden new desk, relearn it again, right? Because now this is coming from me, and this kind of goes back to our point number one, where I'm running into problems with finding guitar picks like really quickly and everything. But I know exactly where they're at in the drawer, so I can go get them now. But now it's like, how do I eliminate that barrier? And now I'm retraining myself. And now retraining other people that I work with. Like, no, it's top shelf in the drawer. Go grab a pick, top shelf in the drawer. So
that'll take time.
In time. But not only that, it keeps things tidy though, and I love things being tidy. I know you do too. This just helps keep everything as agile and efficient as possible. And so this point to me is just so massive.
It's a very big one.
Yeah, so massive.
The third one we got.
This next one though.
Yeah. Brandon's going to be talking about it in more of a vibe sense, because he's the king of just
vibe king.
Using lights to get someone like really just in the mood for music.
Thank you. It's very kind.
You can always drastically tell how much of a light investment there has been when these podcasts are recorded at my studio versus Brandon's studio. Especially if you're watching the video podcast, like they're just completely different vibes. And it's funny because like when we make them into shorts and whatnot for TikTok and YouTube, like they look completely different. We're getting more data, so eventually I want to compare, like, hey, which studio do people click on more?
Absolutely. Because you never know. You
never know.
Like, mine could be too much. It could be too much.
No, it's not.
It could be.
No, but he's more of a vibe. You can be talking about that kind of stuff. And I'm going to be talking about some nerdy light stuff. So I'm excited to get loose on that. But before I do, I'll let you kind of do what you want to talk about. Man, the floor is yours.
Man, I wish I could.
The counter is yours.
Yeah,
countertop.
Thank you. I wish I could tell people exactly how much I've spent in lighting, not only in money but in time as well. But also like kind of brag about it too, because I'm not here spending thousands of dollars on lights. Right, we're doing this very efficiently, right? Very economically.
DIYing is
exactly. To me, lighting plays just such a massive role, and obviously psychologically, which Sean might talk about here in a little bit, also plays a massive role in how we function as humans. In the forefront of things, where I'm going to kind of live right here is, man, the ability to change lights, turn lights off, dim them, soften the light, whatever you can do to facilitate somebody being in the mood to create music is just so massive. And that includes me too, because I like warm tones. I'm an orange guy. My favorite color is orange. So I like having a lot of like warm lighting in there. Now, when somebody comes in and they're more of a blue person, I can adapt to that because, like, let's be honest, blue is kind of the opposite of the warm color, right? So we have a conflict of lighting right here.
Literally on the visual spectrum. Roy G. Biv.
Exactly. So I can go on my little app from my phone and be like, what color do you want? And everybody loves when I change the colors, man. Everybody loves it. Now I have them in the booth too, which is really cool. And those actually change whenever you want, you know, or they can match the music. Like, I don't usually know to use that because like seizures, but like, because that would be really bad. But you can change it to adapt to the situation that you're in. If you're creating like more of a sentimental track, you can go purples, you can go like dark pinks, you can go dark blues, you know. If you're creating a more energetic track, you know, we can turn on the lights more and have more energy in the room going. You can do whatever you want, and honestly, it just makes everything look good too, and it helps enhance the tidiness and the cleanliness of the studio space if you do it correctly. There are ways to do it wrong. Very much so. Like for me, like it took a while to figure out what was correct and what wasn't. And I'm talking like the shapes of the lights, the kind of lights, like LED versus incandescent. And like I'm very much LED just because I want the ability to change colors. I'm kind of going off the rails here.
Go for it. The floor is yours.
Yeah, and then like you can do the apps and stuff. They can turn it on, turn it off, right? Which is really great. That's why I do the LEDs.
Well, that's something. Well, I'm just gonna real quick say something that you mentioned is when they walk in, you're like, "Hey, what color you want?" And they change the color, and they're just like, "Whoa, that's so cool!"
Exactly.
Just like the fact that you are now adding energy into the session before you even start recording or talking about the music at all. It's like, oh, I'm excited because we just made this change. The light's different. Like, there's a positive emotion even before any work is being done now.
Exactly.
And those little things build up and add up. So if you can get yourself in that mood by setting up some sort of lighting that you can adjust with LEDs, are super nice for that. I got some LEDs in my studio too. It can be incredibly helpful for making a space work properly. Anyways, go back to what you about.
Very much so. And like the lighting is really secondary to what the studio looks like. But I think it's even more, even though I just said that, I think it's actually a little bit closer to primary too, because like when people see your studio, your creative space, wherever you're doing this, right, their initial thought is like, wow, this gear is really cool. And then it's like, how is the gear presented though, right? Do we have the overhead lights on and you can see every nook and cranny and corner? You have cables tied up over here that you wouldn't be able to see with the lights off and having the LEDs on, right? Or whatever. This can take you out of the immersion that you're in your creative space, right? But if you have the correct lighting and things are accented correctly, like on the guitar wall, I have the lights that shoot up, like the sconces, right? And by the way, learning the different types of lights is really important. It's lights, or like sconces, pendant lighting, whatever. Lamps, like floor lamps. What's the difference between floor lamp, table lamp? And this sounds very easy to do, and it is. You can learn it very quickly, but it's like, how do I use this properly? But going back to it, the lights enhance the environment, right? And very much play hand in hand, even though you might not think otherwise.
Well, they also draw your focus. If you have guitars hanging on the wall and you've got the sconce lights. If you have those shooting directly at the guitars, when you walk into your rehearsal space, boom, your eyes immediately drawn to your guitars. That's where you're going to want to go and pick it up and get started on your rehearsal and all that.
Exactly.
Like in my studio, when I dim the lights down, I have the LEDs going around it. I have these circular lights on like stand lights that I got from Brandon actually that shoot LEDs in the ceiling to kind of fill out the space.
They look so good.
Yeah, but they also shoot down, and I have them angled to shoot on either side of my desk that has racks where I have hardware in. So immediately my eye is like, it's the desk and all the knobs that I like to play around with. And my brain's like, okay, cool, let's make some music now. Let me activate it, because that's immediately where the focus is.
And one of the best parts about that too is that not only does it shoot up and shoot down, but it does it also independently of each other too. So if Sean wanted all the focus to be on his desk, he could turn off the top ones that are shooting on top of the ceiling and focus the attention, the light on there. That's another thing, is focusing the attention, right? So like I'm very front loaded with my lighting and at my space, right? It's all around the desk. It's all around the computer and where we're looking at 100% of the time, because now everything behind us is a distraction at some point, right? So if we darken that and we eliminate being able to see that, but still having a little bit of light there for safety and whatever have you, right? Walking, We
Or like some like
focus,
dimmer lights.
exactly.
Like, yeah.
Yep. We focus our energy and our attention on the thing that matters the most and what we're looking at the most, and that's being creative at the screen. Writing together or recording together or whatever the case may be. So
it's something we've both utilized multiple times and on studio sessions is let's darken everything but what we're focused on.
Exactly.
Everything but where you're performing, everything but where we're like mixing it and going through the song, so that it's easy to keep the focus where it needs to be.
Yep.
And if you can utilize that within any sort of practice space or workspace that you have, incredibly
very,
valuable.
very powerful.
Yeah.
Very
and with how
powerful.
cheap LEDs have gotten.
Oh, so cheap.
Especially
so cheap.
like if you're in like a place that has one of those Amazon return
Yeah.
stores where you can get like, sometimes you can find some good deals and some pretty cool lighting products from that. It's not really out of the realm to do.
Yeah. I mean, you could probably spend $100.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, the
and
lights
get a
for here,
really
I
good-
got these panel lights. They're not the best, but they get the job done.
100%, dude.
And I got them for, I think the kit for both of them was like $40,
Cheap.
$35 or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And they've lasted.
They've lasted.
Right. And they work out well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
And when
I
they
got
don't,
mine
when
for
they don't
like
last,
$30.
when they break,
Yeah.
it's not hard to replace.
Nope. And there's no like, oh man, now I'm out $200. You know, it's like, oh, okay, whatever. I'll just go pick up another kit or
There's some
something.
crazy expensive lights out there, and I honestly don't know why.
There are. It can get in like that's our little disclaimer right there, is that it can get insanely expensive depending on how you go about this. So just be careful with how much you spend. I mean, if you're a big spender and you got the money, by all means. I mean, and I'd love to see the final result. So please send it our way. Sean will give you the contact of that at the end of the podcast, or you can email us at Music Makers Cookbook podcast
at musicmakerscookbook.com.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah,
that's the one. Because I want to see your space. So yeah. But like Sean said, like I think I paid like for all my LED light bulbs that change colors. I think I have like at least 6 of them, and I think I paid $5 a bulb because they were B stock, and like they cost me $30 to get all that light going on.
And
So
I've been working for so long, like
Exactly.
months at this point.
Yep.
So like,
knock on wood.
got the money out of them.
Exactly. Exactly.
So yeah, that's the vibe version of it. The way it can like increase interest in a session, direct your focus, all that aspect of it. I'm gonna go nerdy here for a little bit.
Please.
You know, we are adding like kind of timestamp sections for these podcasts now. So if you want to skip it, you can look below and find it. If you're maybe not interested in the nerdiness, but please stick around because I think it's really cool.
I think what you're about to say is really important, so you should stick around anyways.
Circadian rhythm.
Oh boy.
Are you familiar with what that is?
I am.
Okay. Are you familiar with what that is? I'll wait. So what it is the body's natural sleep and wake cycle. You know, it's how we go throughout, every day. You want a pretty consistent circadian rhythm, so that way you have energy when you wake up and you're tired when it's time to go to bed.
Yep.
That consistency that is very beneficial to having consistent high days back to back to back instead of up and down, up and down. If you've ever pulled an all-nighter all of a sudden when you were studying or in college or had a long show or whatnot.
Gaming.
Yeah, or gaming.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Those are the best.
I haven't done that in a while.
Me neither.
Or if you've ever traveled, when you were jet lagged or whatnot, and you just felt like crap the next day, that's because you threw off your circadian rhythm. So lighting is incredibly useful to kind of match that. So that way in the morning, your brain releases dopamine in different amounts and focuses in a different way and is more analytical in a different way. So the lights do naturally feed the brain to release these chemicals and keep your rhythm on pace to have a positive day. That's something that I've just recently learned about that I'm pretty interested in.
Yeah. It's very interesting to learn about and can be extremely powerful in health implications too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So from my knowledge, from my research, education, like what I've learned, is in the beginning of the day, as soon as you can, get some sort of natural light within the first 30, 60 minutes. That can really help you as you start your day to kind of get that energy into it. Natural light, full on sun. And there is actually a huge difference between getting sun with the window closed versus the window open. Apparently the window can filter up to like 50%.
Wow.
Of like just
UV rays and stuff.
Just like the light that you need in the morning.
Quality of light or something.
Yeah. As I'm just learning this, so please forgive me on this. I will post a link to a podcast that kind of talks into more detail about this. It's like I think he's a Stanford professor who was talking about it. It's pretty interesting. And in the morning, having direct light above you and having blue light is incredibly important. The blue light, which makes sense because during the day, you got the blue sky, you got that's the tone of energy that we have naturally evolved to respond to and be focused on, be focused with early in the morning. If you can kind of control that with whatever environment you're in, if you don't have windows, if you're like in a room, like the room we're in right now is a completely closed off window. And I have fluorescent tubes. I don't have them on for recording a video, but I would have them on just to get like that bright light in the morning. I've got some cooler tone lights around here as well. A lot of light, overhead lighting, and blue light are very helpful in the morning. Everyone's got a different tolerance because, different eye colors and just light sensitivity and all that. But that's kind of the rule of thumb I've learned for starting your day. As the day goes on, towards the afternoon, maybe around 4 or 5 o'clock, start switching over to less overhead lights. So at that point, maybe turn off the overheads and just have whatever lamps you have on active, and then switching to more warmer tones like the oranges, the reds, the yellows. And if you think about it, once again, that kind of emulates what happens during a sunset. The light's now coming from a different angle, and you've got the reds and the oranges, and it helps keep you within that circadian rhythm, so that way when you are done with the day, you are tired, you fall asleep, and the next day it's easier to wake up again. So if you were doing a lot of late night practice sessions, if it's like in the afternoon, keep it warm, keep it dim, keep it cool. Enough so you can stay awake and focus. Don't like shut everything off because, when it is dark, you're more likely to fall asleep. Just know that if you do blare all the lights on, that will keep you awake. If you put a bunch of blue light on, you will stay awake and be able to pull it on later or get some work done. But it will throw off your circadian rhythm. And for the next couple of days, you will have a hard time getting back into the flow of things.
And that's where the kind of like the demonization of blue light kind of comes into play. That's where a lot of like topics kind of like hinder or like harp on is like when you're in front of the computer screen a lot, whatever, you're on your phone a lot, that's blue light, mainly modern day has kind of come up with some kind of faux like warm tones on the screen now. They're not I don't think they're exactly the right warmness of what we should be seeing or whatever. Like I know Apple does True Tone or whatever. I'm not as well versed in this as you are, but if you hear like, oh, blue light's bad, it's like blue light's only bad at certain points, and how much I think you ingest of the blue light too,
and what your tolerance is for it as well.
Yeah. So if you heard blue light and was like, oh, can't listen to this, like, no, there's a balance to everything, as there always has been. This one's just kind of demonized just because people are having trouble getting off their phone and going to bed after. So that's why we're talking about that.
It keeps you awake.
Because it keeps you awake.
Blue light is morning light. So, if you can kind of control your space in that way, or if you are doing late night stuff, kind of control the lighting a little bit. Tone it down wherever possible, so that way it doesn't throw off your week and you have more energy the next day. So that's something nerdy, interesting I've been interested about. Going back away from that to more kind of basic setup and arrangement things. So we've gone from lighting. Now let's kind of move to the topic of Feng Shui.
Feng Shui, how things are laid out and arranged in your space. This is super important. Not only is it important for Feng Shui, but maybe also acoustically. Oh, that is important. You like acoustics, Sean?
I'm just looking at all the acoustic panels around me.
No, I'm talking about guitars. No, I'm just kidding.
I have an acoustic guitar as well. All I have to do is turn around and it answers both of those questions. Acoustics are incredibly important.
Absolutely. And Feng Shui is also incredibly important too, because not only does this add to the efficiency side of things and trying to make that now look presentable, right? Because like you can be efficient and look like shit. But now you have to make it look good too. So that's where Feng Shui kind of comes into play.
Well, especially if you are bringing other people into the environment.
Yes, exactly.
And there are just some general principles about like warm earth tones, water tones, facing the door, like the way the natural light comes in, east, west, all that sort of deal. It gets pretty intense.
Yes, absolutely. Like, I mean, I would compare this to going to like a mechanic shop and having their workbenches all across, and it doesn't look awesome, and it's not supposed to. It's supposed to be maximum efficiency for getting the job done, getting the car in, fixing the problem, right? Ours is a little bit different because we're more creative. I'm not saying mechanics can't be creative, right? So don't come after me if you're a mechanic, right? That's not what I'm saying here. But what I'm saying is that we're focused on being creative all the time, right? So now we have to make sure that this also looks aesthetically pleasing to us and also functions properly too.
Yes.
And this can be a variation of things like moving your workstation to the other side of the room, or moving your amps to the amp wall, or moving your guitars to the guitar wall, or maybe you put the guitars all the way through the practice space,
or maybe adding a rug in the center
adding a rug,
or
right,
some
like
plants
a big place
or
rug.
whatnot.
Yep.
Or adjusting where you are in relationship to the window
Exactly.
that is on the wall or whatever.
This can take many different shapes, and it would be a crime to make you sit here and go through all those different options, so we're not going to do that.
Well, also, admittedly, we're not feng shui experts.
Exactly. We know what we know within the bounds of what we know.
There are things that we know what we know, but no more than that.
That's right.
But it is something that at least is worth looking into and keeping in mind and applying some of the basic principles to it.
Yep.
Because there is not only a bunch of tradition and history behind these principles that give them some, credibility. There is also science that goes behind it as well.
And there are people that do this for a living, like massive people that do this for a living and go and purely do feng shui like for their job, and they are damn good at it. And I'm sure they have books and tips and tutorials out there that you can go research to and try to incorporate that into your setup 100%. Maybe I should do that.
Become a feng shui master?
I just go see what they say.
Oh,
like
you
tips.
could?
Yeah, I think that'd be kind of cool. Yeah.
Just watch a video on YouTube.
Yeah, but I want to say this real quick too, is that adding plants, whether they're real or fake, can also boost feng shui a lot too. That's what I've done with my studio, like after we had remodeled the first time.
It likes the plants.
Man, they look great. They're fake, but they look awesome, and people ask if they're real all the time. And I tell them, no, they're not, unfortunately. But if you do have real plants, then you have some upkeep to do, but can also help clean up the air a little bit, I would say, and maybe make things smell a little bit better, depending on what you got down there.
There's a lot of research and studies that show that really the oxygen levels that houseplants provide is
minimal.
It's negligible.
Well, never mind. Don't listen to what I just said.
And some fertilizers can actually introduce more toxins into the air.
That sucks. Get fake plants.
Get fake plants.
Yeah, it's easier to deal with, and you can just throw them out if somebody knocks it over and breaks one of the stems or something. Just get fake plants.
Just plastic plants.
Succulents. Succulents are nice.
I mean, what's more inspiring than having reformed dinosaurs litter your room to look like greenery?
You're going to put dinosaurs in your studio?
Well, that's what plastic is.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, dinosaurs were real at one point.
I were. Moving on.
Plants were never real.
Plants are, yes, it is a government conspiracy. Plants and birds do not exist.
That's right.
Dinosaurs are the only truth. No, we're going to move on to kind of another kind of physical space sort of deal. And that is kind of, whenever possible, especially since you are trying to make a career with this, you are listening to this podcast for the intense purpose of making a living in the music industry, having a separate space for business tasks can be incredibly beneficial to achieving this goals, because, as we said, having a space and having lighting and having a setup where once you enter it, you are attracted to the music to be creative and get in the flow state. If you can do the same thing for your business work, where as soon as you walk into a space, there's the computer, there's where you sit down, there are your files, these are your contacts, have it all organized. That's where you want to go and sit down and get working on it. It's the same principle.
Yeah.
It's creative versus tactical.
Yep.
A lot of the same things apply, like getting rid of distractions or keeping them out of arm's reach. Anything that you need access to, keep it within arm's reach so you can grab it and use it as needed. The way it's a little different is that a lot of business spaces now relate to a digital space as well. And this episode, we're not going to go too deep into software, apps, things like that. We have an episode about CRMs. You can check that out. That's a great way of keeping organized. Absolutely.
And we do have a dedicated software app too.
We do as well. Yeah, that's an older one though.
It's quite a... It's like 18, 20, something like that. Somewhere around there.
I don't know if you meant that pun, but
No, I
like that
didn't.
pun.
I didn't. It was an accident.
Appetizer. You got an app.
It was an accident.
But yeah, so if you want to get more information on preparing a digital space, definitely check out those resources. We've got awesome resources, and most of them that we've listed on those locations are kind of free resources or have free versions of it. So it's a good way to kind of dive into it, find out what you need, what you don't need, maybe pay up if you need to down the line, but
absolutely.
starting off with as minimal of an investment as possible.
Yep.
But as mentioned, like the physical space, you know, what's helpful for having a space for business tasks. A lot of it aligns.
Yeah.
It's just replace the creative stuff with the business stuff.
Pretty much. You know, this keeps you focused, like Sean said. And honestly, Sean and I, every other week, will probably bitch about not having a physical space for working on the business alone, because like we have to work at our desks. And, you know, just from personal experience, I think from both of us, is that it can be incredibly complex on how you sort things out, and things kind of get like misaligned, because now you're using both sides of your brain, right? Because like a lot of the business stuff is more numbers driven, I would say. I mean, you can still be creative. I always put that caveat in there, because you can always be creative in some way when you're doing this, but just for this purpose, like business is more, I think it's right side, and then creative more left side, right? Did I get that right?
I'm trying to think of the Bo Burnham song.
Which one?
I am the right brain. I am the right.
I don't know if I've heard that one.
Oh, it's hilarious, and it's so cool the way he visually represents it on stage. Like the lighting on the stage flicks between whichever side of the brain it is. And it's the communication between the two, and how they cause depression. It's Bo Burnham. What do you expect?
Yeah, it's true. It always leads back there.
But yeah, I was trying to think of that song to which one's like right's analytical, left is creative.
Yeah. And the wires get crossed, you know, when you're working in your creative space and on your business, you know. It's nice to have that separation, and this is a luxury, you know, for a lot of the time. But if you do have that luxury, utilize it to its maximum ability. You know, don't be creative in your business space, and don't do business in your creative space.
And don't just take all the tips and things we talked about to optimize your creative space and just apply it to the creative space. Right. Apply it to your business space as well, and utilize these tips in that regard. And I mentioned before, maybe take a piece of paper, a pen and pad, and write down things that are distracting or helpful or that you could need, and build it so it's around that. Once again, label it or whatnot if you've got someone that you could give a hand with or whatnot, or later down the line, you're going to pass off some tasks to like someone you're paying to help, like a band manager or something like that. You can tell them this is where it all is, this is how I've been doing it, and leave it from there.
Absolutely.
But yeah, take these things and don't just apply it to your creative space if you also have a space for business.
Absolutely. I guess I'll tell you what. I can almost guarantee you, I'm not reading your mind or anything, and I'm not going to assume, but I'm going to assume a little bit, right? That you like being in your creative space more than you would be being in your business space. Now, Sean and I, we're nerds, so like we would like being in business space too, but not everybody's built like that, right?
No.
And that's okay, because like you are creative at the end of the day. So if you can organize your business space to be more efficient and effective, and you can focus on that really quick, that gets you more time into the creative space. So now you can just like, boom, done. Back to being creative, which is what I want to do.
Back to the music.
So definitely use those tips for the business side of things too, because that can help you get more time creatively.
Crikey, that was spot on.
Thank you.
I have a really bad English accent. I don't even know why I tried doing that. Poor transition aside, thank you for watching this episode. That's really all we have on organization and optimizing your spaces for now. As I mentioned, if you want to dive deeper, we have previous episodes, and I will include links to other podcast episodes and other resources you can check out. At the end of the day, checking out a YouTube video on any of these specific topics that dive in deeper, that'll really be the most solid way to get started. And if there's anything that we talked about today that you would like us to dive in deeper in a future podcast episode, definitely let us know. Like Brandon alluded to earlier, you can reach out at podcast@musicmakerscookbook.com, or you can reach out to us through DMs on any of our social media platforms that we post on, which include TikTok, Instagram, Facebook technically, and YouTube. So if you want to follow us there, we have some unique content that goes out there.
Send us pictures of your setups too. Like creative space, business space, whatever it may be. If you want to share it, let us know, because we want to see. For sure. Because we can all kind of learn from each other.
That we can. And also, not only can you contact the podcast and the group, but you can also contact Brandon individually if you want to get some work done with your music. He's a great guy for that.
Well, thank you very much, Sean. I typically work on all types of music, whether it's recording, mixing, or mastering. I don't care. Just hit me up, because I like working on music. Or anything audio related, because we are audio guys at the end of the day, you know, so which is kind of cool.
Kinda.
I think it's kind of cool. You can find more information about what I do at studio222recording.com, and you can fill out an inquiry request form there. That is the best way to reach me, and that is the best way for me to get back to you. It just basically entails a couple of details about what you want to work on and who you are, and then I can email you back within a certain amount of time. If you do not like that route, you can go to social media, but I don't like that route. But if you do like going that route, you can find me at _Brandon McLeod or at Studio 222 Recording on all platforms minus Twitter, because who goes on Twitter these days?
No one. It's X now.
Oh, that's true. That's a great point. Sean, where can we find more information about you and what you do?
Well, same thing applies to me.
Same website, everything?
Yeah, exactly. No, in terms of like social media, I have social media accounts. I will respond, but it takes a lot longer because I try not to go to a lot of these platforms because they are very distracting for me.
That's why I don't prefer that too.
So if you want to reach out and have a quick response, directly at swsrecordings.com. That's my website. I have a contact form you can fill out. If you're looking to have remote mixing and mastering of your folk, acoustic, or rock music, I'm your guy. You can also my portfolio on there. Or if you just want to kind of reach out and chill and say hi, you can send out that form as well. On top of that, I also do one-on-one artist development coaching. So it's basically this podcast, but more in depth and specifically related to your career. So you can reach out to me there. I'd love to dive into what you're doing with your music and help take you to that next step where you can start making a living with it. Something we're all trying to do. So you can reach out for me about that there.
Nice, dude.
Yeah.
That was good.
Appreciate it.
That was better than mine.
No, it wasn't. It was different.
Wow. It's nice of you.
But all that being said, thank you for listening to this episode. We really appreciate your support. Follow the podcast, subscribe to this channel if you're watching it on YouTube. Give us a comment or a review, or share it to any other your musician buddies that you think could get value out of this podcast. You know, the more eyes we can get on this, the more people watch it. It helps us make more episodes, get motivated to do it. Potentially gives us new ideas if you guys are communicating with us, telling us what you want to hear, which makes better videos and content for you. It's just a win-win overall. So please share this around if you got any value out of it, which if you're still listening to us after the full episode, I would hope that you stuck around for a reason, especially after our self-promotional preamble.
Yeah.
Our post-amble.
Shameless self-promotion.
Yeah.
With
that being said, thank you for joining us in our kitchen and listening to our podcast today. From our kitchen to yours,
bon appetit.